Happy Saturday, y'all. Today I am going to record. We're going to read chapter 1 of Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson. Just want to preface this by saying that I don't own the work, so I am reading from it. This book has really helped me, and I will say that for a lot of people, this may be a bit of a turnoff because of the title. So the old saying of don't judge a book by its cover, really give it a chance. Most of us, me included, we love our parents. So the last thing you want to hear is a book about how your parents are not great or how they're emotionally immature. So I think have an open mind here and think of it as emotionally immature person. That could be your parent. It could be, family member, loved one, your romantic relationship, friends. But just keep an open mind, and we're going to read chapter 1 together. Again, this belongs to Lindsay Gibson, and it is not my work. Sorry, it's taking me a minute. I don't know. Should I read the introduction or should I go straight to the chapter? Let's see how long the introduction is. I'm going to start with the introduction. Introduction. Although we're accustomed to thinking of grown-ups as more mature than their children, what if some sensitive children come into the world and within a few years are more emotionally mature than their parents, who have been around for decades? What happens when these immature parents lack the emotional responsiveness necessary to meet their children's emotional needs? The result is emotional neglect, a phenomenon as real as any physical deprivation. Emotional neglect in childhood leads to a painful emotional loneliness that can have a long-term negative impact on a person's choices regarding relationships and intimate partners. This book describes how emotionally immature parents negatively affect their children, especially children who are emotionally sensitive, and shows you how to heal yourself from the pain and confusion that come from having a parent who refuses emotional intimacy. Emotionally immature parents fear genuine emotion and pull back from emotional closeness. They use coping mechanisms that resist reality rather than dealing with it. They don't welcome self-reflection, so they rarely accept blame or apologize. Their immaturity makes them inconsistent and emotionally unreliable, and they're blind to their children's needs once their own agenda comes into play. In this book, you'll learn that when parents are emotionally immature, their children's emotional needs will almost always lose out to the parent's own survival instincts. Myths and fairy tales have been depicting such parents for centuries. Think of how many fairy tales feature abandoned children who must find aid from animals and other helpers because their parents are careless, clueless, or absent. In some stories, the parent character is actually malevolent and the children must take their survival into their own hands. These stories have been popular for centuries because they touch a common chord. How children must fend for themselves after their parents have neglected or abandoned them. Apparently, immature parents have been a problem since antiquity. And this theme of emotional neglect by self-preoccupied parents can still be found in the most compelling stories of our popular culture. In books, movies, and television, the story of emotionally immature parents and the effects they have on their children's lives make for a rich subject. In some stories, this parent-child dynamic is the main focus. In others, it might be depicted in the backstory of a character. As you learn more about emotional immaturity in this book, you may be reminded of famous characters in drama and literature, not to mention the daily news. Knowing about differences in emotional maturity gives you a way of understanding why you can feel so emotionally lonely in spite of other people's claims of love and kinship. I hope that what you read here will answer questions you've had for a long time, such as why your interactions with some family members have been so hurtful and frustrating, The good news is that by grasping the concept of emotional immaturity, you can develop more realistic expectations of other people, accepting the level of relationship possible with them instead of feeling hurt by their lack of response. Among psychotherapists, it's long been known that emotionally disengaging from toxic parents is the way to restore peace and self-sufficiency. But how does one do this? We do it by understanding what we are dealing with. What has been missing from the literature on self-involved parents is a full explanation of why there are limits on their ability to love. This book fills that gap, explaining that these parents basically lack emotional maturity. Once you understand their traits, you'll be able to judge for yourself what level of a relationship might be possible or impossible with your parent. Knowing this allows us to return to ourselves, living life from our own deeper nature instead of focusing on parents who refuse to change. Understanding their emotional immaturity frees us from emotional loneliness as we realize their neglect wasn't about us, but about them. When we see why they can't be different, we can finally be free of our frustration with them, as well as our doubts about our own lovability. I need some chai to keep me going. In this book, you'll find out why one or both of your parents couldn't give you the kind of interactions that could have nourished you emotionally. You'll learn exactly why you may have felt so unseen and unknown by your parent, and why your well-meaning efforts at communication never made things better. In Chapter 1, you'll see why people who grew up with emotionally immature parents often feel emotional loneliness. You'll read the stories of people whose lack of deep emotional connections with their parents affected their adult lives in significant ways. You'll get a detailed picture of what emotional loneliness looks like and also see how self-awareness can help reverse feelings of isolation. Chapters 2 and 3 explore the characteristics of emotionally immature parents and the types of relationship problems they cause. Many of your parents' puzzling behaviors will start to make sense when you see them in the light of emotional immaturity. A checklist is provided to help you identify your parents' areas of emotional immaturity. You'll also gain some insight into possible reasons why your parents' emotional development stopped early. Chapter 4 describes 4 main types of emotionally immature parents and will assist you in identifying which type of parenting you may have had. You'll also learn about the self-defeating habits that children can develop in an effort to adapt to these 4 parent types. In Chapter 5, you'll see how people lose touch with their true selves in order to take on a family role, and how they build up subconscious fantasies about how other people should act in order to heal them from past neglect. You'll learn about the 2 very different types of children likely to emerge from emotionally immature parenting: internalizers and externalizers. This will also shed light on why siblings from the same family can be so vastly different in their style of functioning. In Chapter 6, I describe the Internalizer Personality in greater detail. This is the personality type most likely to engage in self-reflection and personal growth, and therefore most likely to be drawn to this book. If you guys have never tried real chai, not the kind that you get from Starbucks, but like real Pakistani or Indian chai, if you know anyone who's Indian or Pakistani, or in my case, I was married to a Pakistani, it is the best thing ever. I don't want to angle it and spill it, but it's like a latte. I can't describe it. You just have to try it. If we meet in person, I'll make you a cup of chai. Internalizers are highly perceptive and sensitive, with strong instincts to engage and connect with other people. You'll see whether this personality type fits you, especially the traits of tending to feel apologetic for needing help, doing most of the emotional work in relationships, and thinking about what other people want first. Chapter 7 addresses what happens when old patterns of relating finally break down and people begin to wake up to their unmet needs. This is the point at which people are likely to seek help in psychotherapy. I'll share stories of people who woke up from their self-denying patterns and decided to be different. In this process of admitting the truth to themselves, they regain their ability to trust their instincts and truly know themselves. In Chapter 8, I'll introduce a way of relating to people that I call the maturity awareness approach. By using the concept of emotional maturation to assess people's level of functioning, you'll begin to see their behavior in a more objective way and can observe the defining signs of immaturity as they occur. You'll learn what works and doesn't work with emotionally immature people, and how to protect yourself from the emotional distress they can cause. All of this will help you gain new peace and self-confidence. In Chapter 9, you'll hear about individuals who have experienced a new sense of freedom and wholeness after using this approach. Their stories will help you see how it feels to finally get free of the guilt and confusion that parental immaturity causes. By focusing on your own self-development, you can get on the road to freedom from emotionally immature relationships. Chapter 10 describes how to identify people who will treat you well and be emotionally safe and reliable. It will also help you change the self-defeating interpersonal behaviors common to adult children of emotionally immature parents. With this new approach to relationships, emotional loneliness can be a thing of the past. After reading this book, you'll be able to spot signs of emotional immaturity and understand why you've often felt alone. It will finally make sense why your attempts at emotional intimacy have failed to create closer relationships with emotionally immature people. You'll learn to manage the overdeveloped empathy that may have held you emotionally hostage to manipulative, non-reciprocal people. Finally, you'll be able to recognize people who are capable of genuine emotional intimacy and satisfying communication. I'm excited to share my results from years of reading and research on this topic, along with fascinating stories drawn from my work with real clients. I've been on a quest to understand this topic for most of my professional life. It seems to me that a great truth has been hiding in plain sight, obscured by the social stereotypes that put parents beyond the reach of objectivity. I'm so happy to share the discoveries and conclusions that have been confirmed over and over again by the many people I've worked with. My hope is to provide relief from the confusion and emotional suffering that emotionally immature parents arouse in their children. If this book helps you understand your emotional loneliness or helps you create deeper emotional connections and more rewarding intimacy in your life, then I will have accomplished my mission. If it helps you see yourself as a worthy person who is no longer at the mercy of other people's manipulations, I will have done my job. I know you've suspected much of what you are about to read, and I'm here to tell you that you were right all along. I wish the very best for you. Now, of course, everything in the I statement is actually Lindsay Gibson talking. Next week we'll record chapter 1. I think whenever I film the video, it comes out like a mirror, so I'll just read it to you. How emotionally immature parents affect their adult children's lives. So this video was about 15 minutes. I think that was 5 pages. So I imagine these will be 30 minutes to an hour each. Please, if you want to follow along, pick up your own copy. And you can read before, you can read with me, but really this is just, it's one of the books in the resources tab of our website. And for me personally, it's been a book that has really helped me. I love both of my parents. My mom, I took care of her. She suffered from Alzheimer's for 13 years before she died. And so this isn't like, that's why I started by saying, if you love your parents, right, it's hard to read a book like this because they're your parents and you love them. But that being said, this book really did help me, and it helped me understand a lot of things. And ultimately, I mean, I don't think it's like coming from a place of maliciousness. Your parents do the best they can with the tools that they have, but they're human, just like you and I are. So really understanding that is very helpful to understand what has happened in your life and why, etc. So check out our site, www.findingyourselfsatx.com. And next week we'll move on to chapter 1. Thanks, y'all.